Hey guys, so we're going to take the last set of notes for Chapter 2. This is Lesson 2-8. We're going to continue on with this idea of a percent of a number, but we're going to change it into something called the percent proportion. And today's date is 12/11/18. So let's talk about what I mean by a proportion and then a percent. So a proportion is an equation that shows two ratios are equal to each other. And remember that ratios is just a fancy word for fractions. So we can take two fractions and we can set them equal to each other, okay? So percent proportion has to be a proportion where we have two ratios that are equal to each other in which it involves a percent for one of those ratios. So a percent proportion looks like this. We have one ratio compares part to whole, which is what a ratio is all about, or a fraction compares a part to a whole, so part to whole. So 1/5 is comparing 1 out of 5 parts, okay? The second ratio this is the one that's going to have to involve a percent written in a ratio form or a fraction. So it's a percent written as a fraction that is equivalent, has the same value, equivalent to the first ratio. Okay, so for example, 1/4 is equal to 25/100. So the left side is part over whole, so 1 out of 4, and the right side is your percent written as a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next screen, and we're going to bring in the foldable we had talked about in class, and we're just going to fill in a little bit of information. So let's go ahead and get to the next screen. Okay, so it asks in this little foldable or graphic organizer, how do you compare part and whole? So we're going to look at it, how do we do it with a fraction, how do we do it with a ratio, and how do we do it with a percent. So it says 2/5, and it says part to whole. So the 2 is the part, the 5 is the whole. So out of 5 pieces, 2 of them are something. So what do you call the part? Well, in a ratio or a fraction, it plays the role of the numerator. Okay, well, what would we call the whole? Well, that's in the bottom, so that would be the denominator. So the denominator is the whole number, just like 100 is the whole number when you're doing a fraction as a percent, as a fraction. The numerator is the part number, the number on top. So under ratio, it says using the information in the first ratio, fill in the others. So remember, we have 3 ways to write a ratio. We can write it as a fraction. We can write it as using the word 2, so the numerator comes first, 2 to 5, or we can use the colon, 2 to 5. They're all read the same exact way. So now let's look at a percent, and we're going to add a teeny little word here. We're going to add the word percent proportion. And the reason why we're going to talk about that is, if you know, in this diagram right here, we've got a fraction equals to a fraction. Now look at, something is missing. And that's really what we're going to work on with this percent proportion. Is we've got 4 spots for numbers. We're going to have 3 of those numbers filled in, and our job is to figure out the missing. So let's just go over this. The numerator 2 and the mystery number are considered the part numbers because they're on top. The numbers on the bottom, the 5 and the 100, are considered the whole numbers. That's what the total is that we're looking at. Okay? And so the question is, what can we do in that mystery box? So let's look. I know I can get from 5 to 100 by multiplying by 20. So if I do that to my numerator, that's going to tell me my mystery number. So 2 times 20 is 40. So here we have 40 is the part compared to the whole of 100. So now we can take that statement up in the numerator and the denominator in that whole proportion, and we can rewrite it this way. That mystery number, 40, is a percent number, so it's actually representing 40%. 40 over 100 is the same as 40%. Of 5 is equal to 2. Okay? So 5, remember, this is the whole number, and this is the part number, the 2. Okay? So what I want to do is kind of share with you the how we would solve a proportion. How can I figure out that 40? So we're going to talk about a couple different ways. And so in this one, you can see we were able to scale up the first fraction to become the second fraction, and that's how we could figure out our answer. All right, let's talk about how to solve a proportion. So to solve a proportion, we have 3 missing pieces. Now, 100 is always 100, right? So remember, it was something over 100. That's your percent value, is the second ratio. So we're going to be missing a numerator, a denominator, and a numerator. And the second denominator is going to be that 100. So first and foremost, we need to identify the values that mean the part what means the whole, and then also what would be considered the percent. So when I say percent, it's the number that would go over 100. Okay, so we need to identify those 3 components in any given problem that we have. We're going to substitute the values into the percent proportion. So remember how it works. Part is to whole. And that's going to be equal to the percent over 100. Okay, so notice 100 is in black because that's always going to be in that spot. The numbers that can vary are the part number, the whole number, and the percent number. So now what you can do is scale up or scale back. So we're either going to take the first fraction and multiply by a number to get to the 100, or we may have to divide, we may have to simplify, we may have to take 2 steps to get there. To find the missing value. So, of the 3 things we need to identify, one of them is going to be an unknown, okay? So I also want to talk to you about another way people look at this percent proportion, because it may come into play as we go through it. So certain words get associated with the part number, the whole number, and usually it's a symbol or the word for the percent. So just to rewrite the percent proportion one other way, the word is divided by the word of equals whatever that percent is. Now, oftentimes it's either written as the percent symbol, so you'll know that you'll see that percent symbol, number attached to it, or we're going to see the word percent, and then always, always over 100. So if these are short little sentences that contain is, of, and either percent symbol or the word percent, and then that's going to tell us we're going to be doing a proportion. So we're going to do, looks like 5 examples. So let me get to the next page. Hold on one second. Alrighty, so our directions say find the missing value. But in order for us to find the missing value, we need to place numbers into the spots. So I'm going to put part over whole as percent over 100 up at top. I'm going to get my frame in there. And I'm going to use just the percent symbol, but it could be the word percent. All right, so the first thing I'm going to tell you to look for is the word we just wrote down on the other page, what means whole, and that's the word of. So what I want to do is locate that word of, and I want to look what comes after it. So what that tells me is in my percent proportion for this problem, the of number, which goes with the whole number, is going to be in the denominator. Now notice what it says. It says what. So what that tells us is this is going to be our mystery number. Oops, I forgot my 100, didn't I? There we go. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is see if I can find percent. And I see the symbol, so in front of it is going to be the number I want. So that's my percent number, is the 15. Now the last thing I look for is that is word. Okay, that's what goes with part, is. And I see it here. Now 15's already been used because it went with percent, so it's going to be 75 is going to go on top. Okay, so here we go. I need to figure out the mystery number. If I go from 75 to 15, then I'm trying to figure out what goes in the purple to get to 100. So we're going to go the other direction. We're going to go from the 15 to the 75. And I remember that if I multiply 15 by 5, that gives me 75. So if I multiply 100 by 5, I will get my mystery number, which is the part number. So here's what I can state as my answer is 500. Oh, that's my of number. Sorry, let's do it this way. Oops, I took off a 0. There we go. So 75 is 15% of, and then we throw in our mystery number, 500. Okay? So that's what the percent proportion can help me figure out is when I have two ratios equal to each other, part over whole equals percent over 100, I can figure out the missing number. All right, so let's try number 2. It says 9 is 36% of what number? So again, we're going to start with the word of, and we're going to look after it, and it says what. So that tells us what we're missing is the of or whole number. So here's my frame. So just like the last one, we're missing the of number, okay? Next I look for percent symbol, and I look in front, and it says 36. So I can replace over 100 the percent value, which is the 36. And then I can look for any other number that hasn't been used, and I look associated with that word is, and it happens to be 9. So I get 9 over blank equals 36 over 100. So again, I'm going to try to scale up or scale back, and this time I'm going to scale back. So I'm going to divide by 4. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So I'm going to divide 100 by 4, and that's 25. So I can say that 9 is 36% of the number 25. Okay, oops. I should probably use black on that one. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, so if you notice all of these, number 3, 7 is 70% of what number, 7 is 35% of what number. Okay, so looks like all of these are going to be set up somewhat the same. So let me just get a couple of these done here. Okay, so again, first thing I look for is the word of, and then what comes after it, it says what. So the whole number, the of number, is going to be the mystery number. Next, I'm going to find percent. I'm going to look in front, and it says 70, so that's going to go over the 100. And then I'm going to look for is, and the leftover number is the number 7. So I got to figure out how to scale up or scale back. To get from 70 to 7, I'm going to divide by 10. Do the same thing in the denominator. And 100 divided by 10 is 10. So we would say 7 is 70% of 10. So it's always the box number that's taking the place of the what, okay? So it's kind of a mystery we're solving, trying to figure out what is 7 70% of? Which number is it 70% of, okay? So 7 is 70% of 10, all right? And then, let's look at this one. So we find of, and we look after, and it says what? So the of number, the whole number, is going to be blank number. Now, what we tend to do in next year, you're going to be putting an X to hold that spot, but we're not ready to do that quite yet. We look for the percent number. There's the percent symbol, look in front, and we have a 35. Then we look for the word is, and there's only one number that we haven't mentioned, and that's the number 7. So we're going to scale up or scale back. In this case, we're going to scale back. 35 divided by 5 is 7. So 100 divided by 5 is going to give me my whole number. So 100 divided by 5 is 20. So we would say 7 is 35% of 20. Okay. All right, last one's a word problem we may have to work off to the right side. It says a horse consumes approximately 2% of its body weight in hay each day. If a horse consumes 18 pounds of hay each day, how much does the horse weigh? All right. Excuse me. So we're going to really think about that part, whole, percent, 100. So I'm going to set up that over here. I'm going to do it over to the right. Oh, sorry. Don't need a multiplication sign. I need an equal sign. Okay. So probably the easiest one to find is or the percent number. Why? Because it has that symbol. So over the 100 goes the percent number of 2. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is look for that word of. Let's see if we can find it. It says, a horse consumes approximately 2% of its body weight. So then it goes on to say, if a horse consumes 18 pounds of hay, how much does the horse weigh? So the body weight is what we don't know. So that's where my box goes, is for the body weight. That represents the 100%. Now, the portion, 2%, refers to how much of its body weight that it eats in hay. So the is number, or the part number, is the only leftover number, is the 18. Okay? So now I got to figure out how to go from 2 to 18, and I'm going to multiply by 9. So if I multiply 100 by 9, fair is fair, remember, I'm going to get 900. So the question again says, how much does the horse weigh? And we've got our answer in the box. And we would say, the horse weighs 900 pounds. So we need to make sure we get a label there. Okay. Now today, the word is flower, as in beautiful, colorful bouquets of flower. So put that at the top of your notes, okay? All right, flower. Talk to you guys later. Bye.